My name is Jareth Purcell. I'm a member of our Rocket Builds team. Um, Today I'm going to say a lot about a very little workflow. Um, Basically, what this workflow does is if you use ConnectWise Automate, you know that if you use like a generic installer, it dumps all those agents into a single location. And the purpose of this workflow is to basically look at all the agents in the system and try to do gateway IP mapping and move them to the proper location. While this workflow isn't particularly technically complex or difficult, I wanted to use it as an opportunity to talk about some of our workflow best practices that we've established and aim to implement. Before I go over them, I just wanted to point out that all the guidelines and best practices I'm going to talk about briefly are available in our documentation under workflows and work section called Workflow Best Practices. So the whole aim of implementing standardization and to our workflows for our team is so that we can hopefully make our workflows simpler, modular, and maintainable. So I'll step through this here, and we'll talk about how it works, and I'll talk about some of the elements and why kind of our thoughts behind why we were why we put these things in place, and hopefully it'll give some of you ideas of things you could do with your own workflow builds. So to start out, you can see that we have both like a beginning and end section for our workflow, and that is to first of all initialize data aliases and have a clearly defined place where those are located. So somebody could open up this workflow, look at the transition here, and see that we have these data aliases that we're going to manipulate throughout the workflow. And then at the end of the workflow, we have the basically any kind of data aliases that we intend to pass back out of this workflow if we use it for a sub workflow. One of the data aliases that we implement is the automation log. The idea behind this is a list of dictionary objects that contain human readable error codes or informational messages that we add throughout transitions. While we can look at the results, the outcomes of a workflow and in the execution results and kind of see, what happened. This is just another tool that's available to us to say, okay, go through and see kind of what happened throughout the workflow and where it may have failed. And a nice feature of this is that we can pass this back to if this is run as a sub workflow, we can pass it back to the parent workflow and have a total list of all the different things that happened throughout its execution. So you can see, for example, in our we go through here, we have our automation log. We just add a message here that said we found a computer in the new location section. Informational message can be filtered out later, but it's there and recorded. So another item that is a good thing to implement here is that limiting the included fields on return results for API queries. There are a couple different advantages of this. First of all, it reduces the overall amount of data that's sent back and forth to Roost. It also shrinks the context size of your workflow so that if, for example, you pass the context between workflows, or you're just trying to process Jinja and things like that, you get better performance in the end. So we've got our limited results coming back. One of the things that we do once we get results is we do an evaluation in our transitions. I know that Tim has talked about this in previous open mics, and it's using the succeeded and failure messages in any kind of custom transitions. This is really good for avoiding. So when you evaluate the Jinja in a transition, we assume that certain things have been set, and if, for example, the outcome of the original action failed, and you don't have necessarily the expected results, then it could cause a Jinja error and cause your entire workflow to crash. So if you're not using try exceptions, but this here ensures that we only look at the secondary set of evaluations if the action was successfully completed. It's always good to do error handling, kind of like if you're used to, you want to always continue on failure, and you want to gracefully exit your workflows. That's just a good practice for anything that happens on a remote endpoint that could potentially fail. So another thing that this workflow could be boiled down to essentially two actions. I could have two actions just like slapped right next to each other, but what we do when we separate out these different things with no ops is it provides greater readability to your workflows, and it also allows you to isolate if you're doing computing for like evaluating and doing like manipulation of data with Jinja, it can basically allow the action to complete, and it will then, if it failed, it would fail here, but for debugging purposes, you would also have it the results or the outputs of the action in question. So again, spreading things out, putting in no ops throughout your workflow, it improves readability of workflow execution results, and it also ensures or increases the likelihood that you're going to get the output of actions, which will help you if you're doing troubleshooting, debugging down the road. So this workflow, I'm not going to pretend like it's perfect, and there aren't things that we could improve here. I just wanted to point those out. First of all, we could use note fields to basically logically separate the workflow and add notes and say, this is what we're doing here. That's a great new feature that they've implemented. Also, when doing with items operations, in this case, I'm pretty confident that the action under normal circumstances will not fail, but there are scenarios where you're doing with items, say, for example, a patch operation, and there's no work to be done. The action could actually return in a failure, and basically that would fail that and subsequent items within the with items action. So a way to get around this would be to move this into a sub workflow. First of all, it would allow you for greater error handling, and it would provide better modularity for the action in question. I mean, there are probably other situations where I need to move automate agents from here to there. So those are just two critiques, I think, just looking at this workflow. And so there it is. Again, very simple, but hopefully at least got you guys thinking about some things that you could do in your as you're developing your own workflows. This particular workflow, if you think it'd be useful, it's been published in the Great Marketplace. Thanks so much.